This is Flipping Junkie Podcast, episode 55. Welcome to the Flipping Junkie Podcast. My name is Danny Johnson, former software developer turned house flipper, flipping hundreds of houses. Each week, we bring you interviews, strategies, stories, and motivation to help you get started flipping houses and on your way to becoming your own boss and achieving financial freedom. Thanks for spending time with me today. Now let's get to it. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Flipping Junkie Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about online lead generation. Now we're doing this podcast series. We're going to have three episodes about online lead generation using websites and all that entails. So let's just jump right in here. So there's two ways that you can generate leads online, two opposite ways. Basically, you have outbound and inbound. And the outbound ones is basically where you're calling people that have ads posted where they're selling their house. So good places for this are Craigslist.org, estatesales.net, any local newspaper website classifieds. So most of the local newspapers now online and go to the classified ads and call on those. Auction sites. I will be probably doing an episode shortly on how to get the benefit out of those auction sites with Paul Lazell. That's going to be a good show, so look forward to that in several weeks. And then other investors' wholesale deals websites. I've got mine set up at cheapsanantoniohouses.com. That's where I post a lot of the wholesale deals, and then if you subscribe to that, then you can get any of the wholesale deals that we have sent out to you to your email, so you can register for those. So sign up for all those that you can. All the local wholesalers in your market, you should be signing up to be on all their wholesale lists. Now, and I know a lot of you, and I always, felt like, a lot of what people wholesale, the price is kind of high, and I just, ignore them. I look at it, say, well, that price is kind of high, and just delete the email. But why not negotiate with them? I know when I wholesale, a lot of times we're willing to budge a little bit on the price, and so why not negotiate? So get on those. You can get those leads. Negotiate with those wholesalers and, tell them what you'll pay for it. And sometimes it'll work out, sometimes it won't. But I guarantee you're going to end up with some deals if you do that. So just do a search, the We Buy Houses in your city, and then, look for investment properties, other wholesalers, stuff like that. Call around, ask what their website is, if they have one, or just join their list. So this outbound method of online lead generation is very time consuming. And, if you've got more time than money, this is probably something you want to look at doing on Craigslist, estatesales.net, and those ones I mentioned, is to go through and look for motivated sellers that have posted that they want to sell their house. And then you'll call and screen them, and you'll probably get pretty good pretty quick about determining if there's any motivation there, because you don't want to waste their time or your time if they're not motivated. So, just as an example, if you want to hire somebody to do this to where they can make the calls and you give them a quick script to determine motivation and maybe set up an appointment for you to go see the house if there is motivation, you could have them call these ads on Craigslist and, say that they saw, whenever they call them, they can say, hello, I saw that you have a house for sale that you posted on Craigslist. Do you have a minute for a few questions? Great. And then ask some questions about the house and try to figure out why they're selling. Ask if it doesn't come out in conversation, because you really need to know why they're selling. That helps determine, if there's motivation at all to sell quickly, because that's the service that you're providing. And then, the script can go on to say something like, I work with a real estate investor that buys houses for cash. And just to be upfront, they can't typically pay full market value, but they can buy the house as is and close within a week or whenever is best for you. Would you be interested in having them come out to make a cash offer on the house? And if the people say yes, great, then they know that the person isn't going to be able to pay full market value and that they're making a cash offer. And so they probably have some of that motivation. And so then the person, making the call could even set up that appointment by asking when would be a good time. And, if the people do set up the appointment, they're okay with all that, the person that you have calling could even ask how much they owe on the property, if anything, so that you kind of have all this information. And if you determine based on what they're asking, what they owe, and maybe the reasons for selling, that it's probably not a very motivated seller, then you could always cancel that appointment, tell them that you didn't want to waste their time, or maybe make them a ballpark figure over the phone. So this is a great source for some deals for you. if you handle that way. And with outbound, you might be thinking that like pay-per-click ads online would be considered outbound, but it's really not, because ads are shown based on the keywords that are searched, and we'll get into a lot of that discussion. So to me, outbound is really more of going out there and looking for people that we're selling. You're looking for them. Now, my preferred method is the opposite of that. It's inbound. So inbound marketing, you want people looking for you. So when you're looking at those ads, you're outbound, you're looking for them, and then you're calling them, finding motivation, sort of like with direct mail. So with inbound, they're actually searching for you, and they've already determined that they'd like to sell quickly, and they're looking for you. This is the perfect situation, because you're dealing with more likely candidates for you to buy their house. So this is what you want to focus on. And that's why I'm going to focus the majority of this podcast really on inbound. So the difference with inbound marketing and other marketing methods for real estate investors to find motivated sellers is that you have them reaching out to you. Like I said, there's a huge difference between this and the shotgun approach of direct mail. If you think about it, somebody has a real estate problem and it's festered enough to where they've gone online to find a solution, and they need you and what you can offer, what you can do for them, are now trying to find you. So you've got to be there for them to find you. And it sure beats getting calls from irate people telling you they'll kill you because you sent them a postcard. That kind of stuff happens. It's crazy. I don't know why people feel the need to do these things, but sometimes you'll get that when you do this direct mail. But you hardly find anybody, like I doubt it's happened where somebody's looked for you online and then told you something similar. So anyway, that's just the difference between, when you're reaching out that way, shotgun approach, versus having them find you. So they want to talk to you versus you don't know if, when you reach out to people, if they want to talk to you. So how can you make sure that you're there to be found online? And that's the $1 million question, and the reason why we're doing this podcast. So obviously you need a website, but things aren't really that simple, are they? Because you don't just need a website, you need a website that can be found by the people searching for you and your exact service. And really your site needs to show up when they search in Google or Bing, and high enough in those search results to even get seen. If you're on page 5, it's not doing you a whole lot of good. I think the stats are something like the 70% of clicks go to the first and second website listed in the search results. So even being on first page sometimes at the bottom is not going to get you a whole lot. You've really got to climb those ranks. And, even when you get that traffic finding your site and getting to your site, it doesn't end there, because once they find your website, you've got to convince them to either call or submit their information. Only then will you get the leads that become flips that then generate thousands of dollars in profit. So I know that sounds like a monumental task, especially with all the competition out there from other investors that know what kind of return on investment is possible with house flipping. And people get wind of that. They know, deals can make them a lot of money, and they're willing to put forth the effort to rank in the search engines for their website to get those leads. So it's not like this hasn't been thought of before. People have been doing it for years. I've been doing it for over 10 years now. And there's competition, and you just have to accept that and know that's what you're dealing with. So don't worry, though. I'm going to show you how to do all of it, and you can start receiving these leads online. So, let's break this up. I'll break it up into a 3-step process. First, you have to get a high-converting website that's set up to rank well in search engines. The second one is you're going to need to promote that website to start generating traffic and leads right now, which is possible. And the third step is working on getting your site to rank faster in the search results for long-term benefit. And I mean long-term because it does take a little while to get up there and rank for that. And I'll tell you, the cheapest leads that I get are the ones for my organically ranking website for search terms where people are motivated to sell their house. So it's definitely worth doing. And, we're going to cover each of these steps, these 3 steps, in its own podcast episode because there's just so much. Years and years of generating thousands of motivated seller leads online has taught me a lot. And I want to share as much of that with you as I can. And so one episode just isn't going to cut it because there's so much. I think we'll be here for 3 hours, and I don't know who wants to sit and just listen for 3 hours. Maybe some people do, but I don't want to record for 3 hours. So we'll break this up into 3 episodes. In fact, on that note, as I was outlining what I was going to say and how I was going to present it here in the podcast, it dawned on me that there's a lot of things that really better understood when they're presented visually. So what I decided to do was have a webinar, and I don't do these often at all. And so, here's your chance to get on a webinar with me. And the seating obviously is limited because of the software we used to do those. And there's thousands of you guys listening out there. So you need to register sooner than later to make sure that you get a spot if you're interested. Now, go ahead and pause this podcast episode. Head over to leadpropeller.com/webinar. That's leadpropeller.com/webinar. And go ahead and register for that webinar. So go ahead and pause, beep, and unpause. So hopefully during that time you did pause and went and registered for the webinar, because I'll be presenting on the webinar so you can see the screen, you can see examples, you can see the charts, stuff like that of what I'm going to be presenting on the podcast. Because as I'm talking about this, some of these things, I'll have like 3 steps or these list of things that you should know. And that's a lot better seen on a slide or something like that. So I figured, let me put together a webinar and we'll do that. But for those of you listening right now, you can get a taste of all that just by listening and then reinforce it with the webinar. So let's go ahead and get started with step 1 that we're going to cover in this podcast is about getting the website. I'm talking about your different options with getting a website. Or if you have one, you want to make sure that a lot of what we talk about today is done for your website so that you're going to get the most out of it. So what are your options, right? So if you want a website, you basically have a couple options. You can get a free online service like Wix. If you go to Wix.com or Weebly, there's Wix, Weebly, and then WordPress.com, which is a WordPress hosted WordPress site. Then your other option is to hire a developer. If you want a custom one, if you want a developer to code up a nice looking website for you, you can obviously do that. Now, great places to hire developers would be Upwork. It's called Upwork.com, as you can hire somebody, usually less expensive. You get somebody in the Philippines. Definitely check for great reviews. They must have great reviews and have done work before, so you can get an idea of whether they did what they say they can do. And I would definitely probably start them off with a smaller part of the website just to see how well they do before you give them the whole project. Because the last thing you want to do is pay them thousands of dollars and wait a couple months to find out that all of it was garbage and you didn't like any of it. So with that kind of thing, definitely piecemeal at first until you get to know that they're doing the job the way that you want them to do it. So what are the issues with building your own website, though? Because that is something that people consider. And, if you have a little bit of a technical background, obviously you'll consider it too. So, if you need to come up, if you're going to build your own website or you're going to hire a developer, one thing is that you need to be aware of is that you're going to need to come up with the content, right? You can't just say, hey, build this website for me. They're going to ask you what it needs to say and what pages you want. And, how should the form submission work? When people go to submit that form, what's going to happen? You've got to be able to explain all of that. And if you're going to build your own, you could use for the form, because people do ask this, if they're setting up their own website, what can they use for the form? And Woofoo.com offers online form builders, and that's WUFOO.com. Never used it, so I can't really explain it very well, but they, if you go to that website, you can check that out if you decide to do that. Obviously, I don't recommend it. Your time is better spent going out there and making deals and doing deals and making money. But anyway, let's, another issue too, that comes to mind is really regarding SEO. So that's search engine optimization. And if you hire a developer, developers aren't inherently search engine optimization experts. Some of them will say they are, and it's kind of scary because you really need to focus on, one thing or the other to be an expert. But some guys are really good. I'm not saying that they're not out there, but you just got to be careful with who you get and what they're doing. You could learn how to do SEO yourself and create and do it. But if you have the site created by somebody else or using one of those free services, that might be pretty difficult, because some of the aspects of on-page SEO are a little bit complicated, and so getting those built into there can be pretty tricky. But anyway, search engines want to provide a good experience to people using their searches. This has led them to prefer sites that are mobile responsive. And so this means that the website adjusts. It's easily viewed on both mobile devices, tablets, and desktops, obviously, or any kind of devices. So if you hire a developer to create your site, make sure that they build it to be mobile responsive. I think some of Wix and stuff like that offer the mobile responsiveness. I'm not sure how they do it, but you have to check. That's one thing to definitely make sure of. And we'll talk more about this mobile responsiveness and how basically the number of searches that people are doing on mobile devices has gone way up as compared to desktop use. So it's not just desktops anymore, computers or laptops that people are going to websites on. They're going from their phones and from their tablets. So you want to make sure that website works for those too. And regarding hiring a developer as well, software developers can be pretty expensive. So it's a wide range. You can pay thousands of dollars for a site. So like I said, if you shop around, you could probably get it done cheaper through a developer in the Philippines that usually they speak pretty good English. And on Upwork, you can specify that you want somebody that's fluent in English. So that's pretty great. All right, so the other option besides building your own or hiring a developer is to get an already built, optimized website system and, go with the service that provides these optimized real estate investor websites. And lucky for you, I know all about those because I developed one myself that you can use. And so the story about that is, over the last 10 years of generating thousands of motivated seller leads online, I've learned quite a bit about what works and what doesn't. So in my book, if you know that I have a book out there, it's called Flipping Houses Exposed, 34 Weeks in the Life of a Successful House Flipper, which you can actually get for free by going to flippingjunkie.com/free book. All one word. Free book. There's no dash or anything. So flippingjunkie.com/free book. And junkie is JUNKIE. flippingjunkie.com/free book. And you can just you can download that book for free. It's actually 300 something pages or something, but it's excellent. Anyway, the book I showed where almost 500 motivated seller leads came from during 34 weeks of my flipping business several years ago. And the vast majority of those leads, of those nearly 500 leads, were from my house buying website, which is DannyBuysHouses.com, if you didn't know that or haven't seen it. As more and more people have read that book, because hundreds of thousands of people have downloaded that book, and it's on Amazon as well, but you can just get it at flippingjunkie.com/free book. But as more and more people read that book, I would continually get emails from people asking me, where I got my website, and if I can help them get one set up. And I really hated not having a recommendation. So I used my background in software development, what I did before I started flipping houses, to build websites for other investors. And these are just normal websites. These aren't just normal websites either, because they're built on the over 10 years experience generating thousands and thousands of motivated seller leads. So all of that I learned, the mistakes I made and what worked and what didn't, go into that. So it's a huge benefit, and that's why I think so many people were asking me, kind of hoping that maybe I would develop one for them. But so I did. We provide these now, and the system is called LeadPropeller. So if you haven't heard of that, go to LeadPropeller.com. Those are real estate investor website systems, and basically managed online lead generation for real estate investors. Definitely check it out. And I don't want to turn this into a giant sales pitch. Anybody that's followed Flipping Junkie for any length of time knows that I'm not a salesy guy. I'm not going to hype up a bunch of stuff and not give you any kind of real value. So what I want to do is go over what makes for a great optimized website system, so you know what to look for in one. And this will be helpful information for you no matter what you decide to do, because it's your choice. Go with LeadPropeller, go with another system, build your own website. It's your choice. So you're going to get a lot of value out of this. What I'm going to cover now are the following. So what makes a high converting real estate investor website? So we're going to talk about what makes a high converting site, how the proper notification system helps you eliminate competition. So if you have your system, your website system worked out great, you can actually eliminate competition, and I'll show you how that works. And then how fresh content on your website helps you to rank better, faster, and for more terms to get more leads. It's a really cool thing. So many people put a website up and don't ever touch it after they do, and it's just crazy. You've got to add content, and I'll show you ways to do it where you don't have to do that yourself. And so let's just get right into this first one here. So what makes a high converting real estate investor website? And first, if you don't know what converting means, or a conversion, so a website conversion is basically when somebody visits your site and either submits the form on the site or gives you a phone call. So basically you converted that traffic into a lead. So if people come into your site, they don't do anything, they're not really a lead, it's not a conversion. So if you have 10 visitors view your page and one submits the form, that's a 10% conversion rate for the time period that you're looking at. And so that's pretty good for a website too, by the way, because not everybody's going to submit the form and call you. And an explanation of why that's usually the case is that they may just be curious about your services. They could have, searched for a term that you ranked for that maybe your site wasn't really about. And they may be other investors just checking out the competition. This happens a lot. You get a lot of traffic from other investors looking at what's out there. You may have found somebody that was skeptical of your website and so they didn't fill out the form or call you. And this is very real. You don't want to think that kind of thing happens, but a lot of people are skeptical. Another reason why they don't maybe fill out the form or call you is that they don't have strong enough motivation to take action yet. They're kind of nervous. They're kind of embarrassed by their situation. A lot of people with these problems where they want to sell their house quickly, they're pretty embarrassed by it. So the house is a wreck. They're thinking, okay, this guy's going to need to come to my house, and he's going to see the state it's in, how trashed it is, and so they're not ready yet, basically. So let's consider those last two, because I think those are perfect ones. You need to have those people convert because they're motivated sellers, and you want to have them convert. So let's discuss those last two items in more detail. So it's people that are skeptical and people that are anxious. All right. So one group isn't sure about how legit you are, and the other group's not feeling comfortable enough to reach out to you. And how do you design your website to address those issues? And please understand that these are very common issues for motivated sellers looking for a way out of their situation. And it's not just like the outliers. These are a bulk of people. So the way that you get the BS meter for people to ease up and become more comfortable and open to contacting you is to provide credibility. And, some people teaching about this kind of thing would say, provide credibility and then move on. But I've got a whole list here. So, lucky us. You can exude credibility by doing several things. First and foremost, you need to have testimonials on your website. People want to see that other people have used your service and are happy with how it went. So if you don't have sellers yet that you can ask for testimonials from, ask your friends. Ask family, ask colleagues. They don't have to lie and act as though you bought their house. Don't do that. They can just vouch for your integrity, what type of person you are, and all that kind of stuff. That works just as well because really people want to know who's behind it and what other people think about them. And, and one note too, because I see a lot of people doing testimonials and then they put like the first name and just the initial of the last name. And I don't know about you, but when I see a testimonial by John W., I doubt the legitimacy of it. It's just something, and I think maybe a lot of people, I don't know if you feel that way as well or not, but and then video testimonials are the best. If you can get video testimonials, it's something you should strive for, something you should work at doing. It's really hard to doubt those. When you see a video testimonial, you have somebody sitting there telling you that about the service and how everything went. And obviously the best time to get those is right after closing. So right after you bought the house, you did what you said you were going to do, is the time that people are going to share their honest opinion and they're the happiest. So that's the time to do that. The second thing to do to help combat, to provide credibility to combat, people that are skeptical or anxious is to have a professionally designed website. This is huge. You need a site that looks and works great and it's easy to navigate. I'm sure you've been to a site that's looked like it was built in the 90s. I find them all the time. It's crazy. You want a clean, uncluttered website that shows that you're professional. And think about it. You're telling people you pay cash for their house, and you've got to have a website that looks like it costs a lot of money to build. You don't want to have something that looks like it was thrown up or it's on some kind of free service that has their domain on it, and you as just like a side part of the whole thing. So I've heard people talk about how pretty websites don't convert as well. And that's just complete baloney. I don't know what that's all about. There's so many factors that go into conversions that an easy excuse for low conversions is that the site was pretty. It's crazy. What usually is going on is the people offering the websites that don't have the technical ability to allow their customers to have custom-looking sites. So what they do is they spin the problem to make it seem like it's not a problem but a benefit. So beware. The myth that pretty sites have low conversion rates is complete garbage, and we have years of data to prove it. So don't listen to that. If you buy into that and you're given a site that you don't feel is completely professional or clean looking the way you want it, don't buy into this thing that they're trying to sell you that it's not going to convert as well. If it's not, that's garbage. And a simple test is really, ask yourself, which site do you feel more comfortable submitting your information to? A nice looking site or a site that looks like it was thrown together in a couple minutes? I mean, honestly, always consider things from the perspective of potential motivated sellers as well. You've got to put yourself in the shoes of the person that's searching online for you and find your websites. Always do it that way, because we sort of have the curse of knowledge sometimes with our own sites, and we come into it just from our point of view, knowing all the things that we know. And you have to come into it from, maybe like a beginner's mind that's not cluttered with all that information. So, you look at your site with the point of view of, if you don't know what it's all about, you're trying to figure out who's behind it, what it's about, how it works, and make sure all those things are addressed in your website. All right, so those are the first two. The next one would be to make your site personable. Let them know who you are, why you do what you do, and how you got into the business, and how you want to help them. And pictures that don't seem like cheesy stock photos work the best. I mean, don't ever put these corporate looking cheesy stock photos on your website. It looks horrible, and it makes it corporate and seem canned. About Us page is crucial. That's where you can tell your unique story and let people know. And people really do care about those things. I think it builds rapport for you tremendously to have those things. So don't ignore it and make a vague, generic-looking corporate website. You should also include a little blurb about you on the homepage as well. So if you've got a spot there, a section where you can put that about yourself and on some of the other pages, so that no matter which page they land on your website, they kind of get a little info about you, the person behind it. And so this next one actually goes into that as well. It's talking about making the contact info easy to find on your website. So I don't know if you've ever gone to a website where you were kind of like looking at it and there's just a form, there's no address anywhere, there's no name of somebody, there's no phone number. And to me, I get really skeptical about those kind of things, because I feel like anybody can do that. Like any even 15-year-old can put up a website and put up a form, and have that kind of stuff, and you don't really know who's behind it, if they're legit or not. So this goes a long way. So when people have no other option aside from filling in a form to get in touch with you on your website and can't find a name or anything about who's behind the site, they also become very skeptical. So make sure you got your phone number and contact info and address on your website. Okay, the next thing that you can do to help build that credibility is establish yourself as an expert. And I know when people hear this sometimes, immediately they're thinking, man, that sounds like a lot of work. Like, how am I going to convince somebody I'm an expert? And maybe you're a new investor and that's like something that you're even kind of concerned about. But don't be. You should have content on your website that shows what you're talking about. And obviously, knowing what you're talking about is huge, because you're talking about buying people's houses, and it's a pretty big deal. So, one way that we do help with our system with LeadPropeller, the sites come with default content that's already written for you and works masterfully at presenting you as an expert. And you should be blogging to do this. So you have a website that's got content, but you want to keep that content going. You want to build on it, cover different aspects. You can cover a lot of this, how to sell a house fast and things like that, and how you work, and we buy houses and stuff like that. But what you want to do is build over time, is build into some of these other aspects, basically going into all the different situations people face. So you can have some articles about inheriting houses and maybe taxes that have to be paid. People have those questions. They inherited a house, they're not sure what to do with it. Should they rent it? Should they sell it? You can have articles about those decisions and the benefits of doing either. And then that way, if they feel like it was a good benefit to go ahead and sell it, then they learn from you and they feel like you're an expert and contact you about getting an offer. So it's pretty cool. We cover the topic. We're going to cover this topic, though, about blogging and content marketing is basically what it is, in another podcast episode and on the webinar, because there's so much involved. If I just do it all right here, we're going to be eating up a ton of time. So I'm going to devote a whole podcast episode to the SEO, search engine optimization, and content marketing, because they kind of go hand in hand. All right, so a side note about that too is that LeadPropeller, what we do with that is the websites have this content, but we also have these content packs. So you can also additionally purchase some content packs that can be dripped out over several months to keep your site fresh and establish you as that expert. So you don't even have to write all these things. They've been optimized. They're over 1,000 words a piece, got pictures in them, all this kind of stuff that takes forever to do. And so it's pretty awesome. Anyway, we'll talk more about all of that in that other podcast episode. So the next thing that you can do to build the credibility, believe it or not, is fast loading websites. So if your site loads really slow, believe it or not, that affects how visitors perceive you and your business. And obviously, if they're going on a mobile device and it's taking a long time, they're not going to wait for it. They're going to go back. Same thing on desktop. If it's taking forever, they're just going to go back and go to another site. They're going to go to your competition. So you've got to have a fast loading site. Now, when you get some of these free websites, you're on a shared server. So you're on a server that's also handling all these other all these other people's websites. And, if you've got some intensive stuff being done on those servers, it's going to slow down the loading of your site. So just be aware of that. One thing you can do is get, dedicated server. Of course, that costs, more money. So you have options, but it's gonna cost quite a bit. So, but basically, this whole fast loading website thing. So, according to KISS Metrics, which they do a lot of things about conversions and analytics on websites, and basically it's found that 47% of consumers expect a web page to load in 2 seconds or less. So it's just expected, and 40% of people will abandon a website that takes more than 3 seconds to load. That's almost half. That's almost half of the people coming to your website will abandon it if it takes longer than 3 seconds to load it up. And every 1 second delay in a page response can result in 7% reduction in conversions. So time is critical. It's got to load quick. This is something that's not really thought about often, and it's a huge deal. And honestly, Google and other, and Bing, I'm sure too, look at page load speed and consider that, because they want, if they're presenting you as a search result for a search, they want people that click on that to go there and be happy with what they experience. And that part of that is that fast loading website. So if you're not providing a good experience, they don't want to show you as some of the top results because they want to provide a good experience for the search engine users. That's how they stay in business. All right, so fast loading websites. So those were ways that converting people that wouldn't otherwise contact you due to being skeptical or anxious. And I want to also talk about conversion enhancing design. So the design of the website, which can drastically improve your conversion rate by leaps and bounds. And these are things that are built into the site, the way it functions, the way it's set up, and the flow of it, basically how people use the site. And so with that is the forms, right? So, you would know that you need to put a form. So what should the form ask? Should it be one form? Should it be two forms? How should you deal with all that? And so basically through dealing with different types of forms, and the best that we've really had that we use are short forms. So large forms that ask tons of information right off the bat scare people away. What you want to do is have a short form that only asks for the bare minimum to get the maximum number of people to feel comfortable submitting their information. Because if they see a whole bunch of questions in this form, they might not feel comfortable about it and don't ever bother submitting it. So the way our LeadPropeller websites work is they have a short form that asks for their name, email address, phone number, and address of the house they want to sell. Now, once they submit that form, their information is saved in your LeadPropeller account. It's also emailed to you and texted to you. So we'll talk about that texting in a minute. It's very cool. And it's also a way of knowing instantly that somebody submitted the form. So the website visitor is then taken to a longer form that asks tons of great questions about the house and why they're selling. And so, we've crafted these questions in the second form in a way so they're more inclined to give you the real numbers and the real story about why they're selling. So, for example, our long form asks the seller their asking price and then about any repairs or updating the house needs. Then they're asked why they want to sell the house. Now, those two questions usually get them to feel the way they felt when they decided that they really needed to sell. And, now that they're back into the mindset they were in, we ask what's the least they'd be willing to take for a cash offer and a fast close. And it's amazing. This is almost always much lower than the asking price that they mentioned earlier in the form. Now, how awesome is that? The website does the negotiating for you. It's very cool. And if you set up your own website, go with another system, make sure that this is going on. Make sure that this question is being asked. What's the least they're willing to take for a cash offer and a fast close? Because almost always it's going to be less than what they were asking in the first place. And you also want to make sure that you ask how much they owe, because whenever I'm looking at a lead that comes through, I don't typically care as much about what they're asking for the house as what they owe on the house, because people can ask whatever they want for a house, but they most of the time are willing to take much less than what they're asking for. So it's more a matter of how much they owe to see if there's enough equity there for me to be able to buy it at what makes sense for me. So back to the two form system though. If they fill out that first form but do not fill out the second form, you still have their contact info so you can reach out to them. So this is awesome. So if they got scared away by the second one, it doesn't matter because you can contact them. And if you only have a single long form that scares people off, you've got no way of knowing who they were and that you even had a potential lead that was lost. You just don't know. So having this two form system is very powerful. And a bonus secret here, about real world use of this stuff, and this is the power of all of this, the fact that we've been doing this for so long for our own business, and all that knowledge goes into this, instead of somebody that comes in that's really never done motivated seller marketing for themselves and their business and learned the ins and outs and what works. It kind of has a disadvantage there. So one thing I've heard other online marketers that provide real estate investor websites tell people is that research shows a form with fewer fields gets higher conversions. And they show you should remove all but the name and email address on your homepage form, and that's horrible, horrible advice. It's true that there's market research, online, the marketing research for online marketing about shorter fields gets a higher conversion rate, okay? Now that is true, but when it comes to our business though, and this is here where that real world experience comes in, you've got to have the phone number on the form. In the past, I've tested actually removing the phone number. Using the advice given, you'd expect to get more leads because more people would be comfortable submitting the form with just their email address and not their phone number. So you think, I'm going to get more leads, and it's going to be even better because people scared to put in the phone number aren't going to, just leave. But that's not really what happened. Here's what actually happened. When you only have an email address, it's very, very difficult to get in touch with the seller. It's a fact. It happened over and over. When I only had the email address, I could never get in touch with them. You've got to have their phone number. And I can almost guarantee you that when I was only getting their email address, they would then go to another website, submit their information along with their phone number because the other guy is asking for the phone number. The other investor was then able to call them and set up an appointment. And since that happened, they didn't need to bother with my emails or getting back in touch with me. They already had talked with somebody, and that's why you've got to have a phone number. You got to get in touch with these people as soon as possible. So real world stuff there. Do not take advice to just have a phone number and email, a name and email address, because you're going to have a hard time getting in touch with them. And if you ever do, it's probably already sold, at that point. You got to move quick. All right, so we touched on this briefly before, but mobile responsiveness. And really this section is going to benefit greatly as a part of the webinar that I'm going to put on because I can show you, you can see really what I'm talking about. So if you haven't yet registered, please take a minute right now to go to leadpropeller.com/webinar, leadpropeller.com/webinar. And you absolutely must have a mobile responsive website. If you don't, you're going to be losing out on at least half the deals you could be getting, and probably more. According to SimilarWeb State of Mobile Web report last year, roughly 56% of consumer traffic to the leading U.S. websites is now from mobile devices. That's over half, and it's growing. So websites these days need to be mobile responsive so they look great and adapt their design no matter what device they're displayed on. So this is the phones, the tablets, desktops, anything that's going to be coming out, these different sizes. The website needs to look and work and adjust to that so that they function properly. And There's factors to consider when designing for mobile devices that a lot of developers don't even think about. In fact, Google's got a guideline that's, a guideline for mobile friendliness is their term for it. And it's not just mobile responsiveness, but mobile friendliness. And, these design factors include stuff like making sure that the buttons and links have enough space around them so that it's easy to touch them without inadvertently touching a different link or button than intended. So I'm sure that makes sense. If you're on a cell phone or something, a smartphone, and you've got a website pulled up and you go to click a link, but there's a whole bunch of other ones near it because everything's displayed so small, it's going to be very hard to click that link or that button without accidentally clicking other ones. So they look at this, and Google actually is smart enough to be able to render sites with the different window sizes and pixels and know that it's actually going to be better. And so they've even got a tool for testing that. And if you go to google.com/webmasters/tools/mobile-friendly, I know it's a mouthful. I'll put it in the show notes page also, and I'll show you on the webinar about this. But if you want, you can go there and even just put in my website, DannyBuysHouses.com, to test out my site, and it'll show you whether it's mobile friendly or not. So another quick way to test mobile responsiveness is open to your desktop browser and load a website. You can do this in the browsers on your desktop. You then click the edge of the browser window and adjust the width of it to make it smaller to see how the website adjusts. So this is a good way to see if your website is adjusting properly and looks pretty decent. Then you can also use developer tools in Chrome if you use Chrome as a browser. I know Firefox also has some tools. And during the webinar, I'll go ahead and show you how to do that. I won't explain it here because it's just the steps involved. Okay, so we'll move on to the next thing. So WordPress or not WordPress? I know some people, hear that WordPress is great for SEO. Search engines love WordPress, all this kind of stuff, and that's why it's recommended. The reason why, though, it's sometimes recommended is really because of the ease of adding content. Search engines like it because it makes it easy to have fresh content, to have new content, more content on your website. It's not because it's WordPress, but because of that fact. Now, that's what it was built for. It was built for blogging. It was built for content, right? And so that's why it's recommended for that. And you can go in and write up new posts and publish them and schedule posts, things like that. So it's very good at that. But what it's not best for is creating easily customizable websites that look great and load fast. Okay, so WordPress isn't really perfect for that, and that's kind of a problem. So we had considered WordPress actually as a platform for LeadPropeller websites, but quickly dismissed it. We decided not to because of that limitation. The fact is we wanted our sites to be easily customizable, and we even built a custom editor for this that you can just point and click and change elements on your site. And that also, the way we coded it ourselves, not using WordPress, also allows us to provide a lot of different templates that can be tailored to your individual taste, so you can get the site that you like, customize it the way you want it, change the colors, etc. Now, for the ability to easily add content to your site through blog posts, we coded up the ability to add a WordPress blog to your site with the push of a button. So you don't have to do any kind of crazy installation, stuff like that. But so then you have a site that loads super fast, it's easily customizable, looks great, and also has an attached WordPress blog that's there for what it does best, and that's adding blog posts and content. So you got the best of both worlds. So we didn't want to lock you into the limitations of WordPress. And please also be careful if you decide to look into a site designed solely around WordPress. They can load slower and usually don't allow you to install your own plugins if they're built on multi-site. So just be aware of that. Could be an issue for you if you want to add plugins and stuff to your blog. So these are huge limitations that were deal killers for us when we architected LeadPropeller, and that's why we decided not to go that route. And I just wanted to inform you of that. If you're making that decision to build a site on WordPress or go with a service that has sites built on WordPress, so could be issues for you. Okay, so the next one here that I was going to cover, we've talked about so much now. I was saying that there were three things that I was going to talk about, and the first one was what makes a high-converting real estate investor website, and that's what we've spent all this time on. So now I'm going to get into the proper notification system to help you eliminate competition And after that, we'll get into how fresh content helps you to rank better. So the proper notification system. You're going to want this. And if you build your own site, make sure that you put this kind of stuff in here, because it's just as important as all the other stuff with conversions. So consider what people do when they search the internet for something. Usually people will click on the top result, scan the website, and then the mouse moves up and to the left, and you click the back button. You leave the site, you go to the next one. We all do it. We want to see what other information is out there. Now, it's also what many motivated sellers do when they search for a home buyer to buy their house. And we've considered this a lot, and I've thought about all kinds of things, tried a bunch of crazy stuff. We found that the best way to really deal with this and prevent them from contacting other people is to talk to them as soon as possible. And this way you can build some rapport and set an appointment. If you do those things, build that rapport and set an appointment because you've talked to them, they usually don't continue looking for others as they feel they've accomplished what they set out to do. Now, this gets back into the whole thing when I was only getting their emails and they ended up talking to a competitor because he got their phone number, he or she got their phone number. I would lose out on that, and they wouldn't even respond to emails or anything because they had already taken care of it. So you need to talk to people, and there's 3 ways. I'm going to go over 3 ways we can increase our chances of talking to them before they get to our competition. So you got to have your phone number in multiple places on your site because what you really want is them to call you instead of submitting the form. And then you've got to be able to answer that phone, okay? So you got to have the phone number in multiple places. Second thing is we can send them an automated text message after they fill out the second form. So after they do the second form, they can get an automated text message from LeadPropeller. Allows that to happen, where you have this automated text message be sent to them. And the third thing is you can notify them instantly with the text message. You can be notified when a text message from each form is filled out, so that you can call them right away. So those are the things. Have your phone number all over. After they submit the second form, they can get an automated text message sent to them so that they feel like, the text message can say something like, hey, got your information, I'm going to give you a call in a second. And so they're waiting for your call, right? And the third one is having you notified as soon as the form is submitted. Because if you just have a form submission that goes to your email, and if you have no way of being notified as soon as you get an email, that could sit in there for hours before you ever notice it. And at that point, they're long gone from the computer. They've already maybe talked to another competitor. So you need to have this text messaging so that you can have these instant notifications. The feature of LeadPropeller is actually one of my favorites, and it's what makes the system more of a system really than just websites. And we're working a lot of technology with this stuff. It's really pretty cool. I can't wait to show you a lot of the new things that we've got coming out. But you can even insert data from the form submission that they submitted on your website into the text so it doesn't seem automated, because it can say something like, hey, I got your information about the house at 123 Main Street. I'll give you a call in a second. So it's pretty cool. Something we also made available was the ability to get a notification if the seller responds to that automatic text. So if they got that text saying that you're going to call them in a second, and they text you back, you'll get a notification of that, and you can click a link and continue that conversation. So it's pretty cool. I don't know that any other systems really allow that, have the ability to do that. Okay, so the text is pretty cool. Another thing is setting up autoresponders and drip email integration. So if you want to do some follow-up email kind of stuff, since we're also collecting their email addresses, we can communicate and follow up with them through the email. So in LeadPropeller, you can set up one-off autoresponder emails that also allow that insertion of data that they've submitted from the form. That way they get that, and you appear very responsive and professional. And then also, if you use MailChimp, Aweber, Constant Contact, Mad Mimi, or GetResponse, which are email marketing services, you can actually link those up to those forms on your LeadPropeller websites. Or if you build your own, make sure that you set that up so that you have email addresses submitted to those lists within those systems, so you can have this automated. And inside of those systems, like MailChimp is free for certain features, and you can set that up, link it up with your form on your LeadPropeller site, and then set up an autoresponder series of emails in that MailChimp account to go out and over a period of time send them email addresses to follow up with them. etc. And I've always felt like it's a very cool thing, but never really kind of liked the fact that you have to get the separate services like MailChimp or Aweber or whatever to do the drip autoresponder functionality. And the main reason being is because if you found that there's no way that there could be a deal from that lead, and you've got them automatically being sent these emails, you're kind of going to irritate them, or they're going to respond, and you have to deal with figuring out if, whether that was a valid lead or not. So you're wasting your time. And so we've considered that, so much so in the fact that we've actually added this drip autoresponder functionality without needing those services to REI Mobile. REIMobile.com is our CRM software system, basically automation stuff for real estate investors, and we added that to where you can do text messages and emails as part of drip sequences. It's very cool. So soon we're going to be allowing voicemail message and direct mail as well to these automatic drip sequences. And it's great because it's built into that system so that if it's not a lead, you just don't add the automatic sequence. Whereas if you're using MailChimp or something and it's going to those lists, they automatically get those autoresponders and you might not want them to. So this is pretty cool. All right. So yeah, those automated drip campaigns save a lot of time and hassle with follow-up. So check out REI Mobile for that if you're interested in that kind of software and automation. And those obviously link up to LeadPropeller sites as well. So very, very cool. And, a lot of this follow-up stuff, I will talk about in more detail in another podcast and probably on the webinar as well. All right, so the third thing that I wanted to talk about with converting website traffic is how fresh content helps you to rank better. And we've covered how to make your website convert much higher and how to eliminate competition through fast notification methods that allow you to contact the seller immediately. But now I'm going to talk to you about how fresh content helps you rank your site better in search engines. And websites need to be easily updated. And LeadPropeller provides a custom website editor that we built to allow you to click the elements on the page and edit them. And it's awesome and truly a dream to use. And this was like the biggest thing that I wanted to make sure that LeadPropeller was built on this ability so that people don't know how to code. They don't have to worry about FTP or updating a website like in WordPress where you have to go through menus that are 8 layers deep and get completely lost. Some other systems that are built on this WordPress stuff and their editing capabilities are almost non-existent. You have to go through all those menus that take you places so far removed from what you're changing on your site that you kind of forget of what you're changing, and it's very confusing. And those services actually recommend not changing anything on the sites, mainly because it's nearly impossible to do so. But yeah, you got to be able to update your site when you want to with changes without having to contact people and that kind of stuff. And we do provide phone support too. So if you have something you want to change and you can't figure out how to do it in the editor or whatever, we have phone support and help you do that. So it's very cool. All right, website updates and new content to your website help you rank better, right? And it's because Google and Bing will want to show websites that are both fuller and fresher. Now, fuller websites are websites that simply have more pages and more content that's all relevant to the topic of the website. And obviously, being that we're home buyers, we want to make sure that the content is relevant to these things. Real estate, your website's got to be about real estate, right? It's about houses, homes, condos, rentals, all about real estate. Second thing is the location. So the city that you're buying in and the surrounding areas. Being that our websites usually just target one city, we want Google and Bing to know that we specialize and are focused on that area. And the reason is it's much easier to rank locally than nationwide. If Google knows that somebody's searching for something in that certain city, it's easier to rank and show that you're the one in that city. So it's sort of like pizza and stuff like that. They're not going to show you some place in Chicago if you're searching from San Antonio, Texas, all right? It's the same thing for the houses. If people want to sell their houses. So you want to make sure the site has a lot of information about the location. What we did was we quickly provided we provided a way to quickly add landing pages to your site with all the different areas. So like San Antonio, we have different cities and areas within San Antonio and around San Antonio, like Schertz and New Braunfels and some of these other places. And so we created a way where all you have to do is specify that list of names of those areas, and then the system will automatically replicate the home page and create these landing pages for you with the location swapped out in all of them. So then now you have these separate pages focused on these separate areas. huge time saver, lots of great separate content that focuses on those individual areas. So very cool. If you can set up those separate pages for those different areas for your website, that's definitely recommended. All right, so the next thing that needs to be about, obviously, is buying and selling houses fast. You want to rank for those terms because that's what people are wanting to sell a house. But more importantly, we want to rank for people that want to sell them fast. So it's not just saying that you allow people to sell a house. It's so that they can sell a house fast, because that's really who you want to target, not somebody looking for a realtor. Those are really the most important keywords to focus on for a website for search engine ranking, and we'll talk about more of that on the third podcast that we do in this series. All right, so when you have more content on your site, you inevitably rank for more and more search terms, and then you get more and more leads. So, again, we'll talk about that in the third podcast. We've covered a whole lot today. I hope it's not overwhelming, but if it is, it's probably going to be better. You should definitely register to be on that webinar. So go to LeadPropeller.com/webinar and register for that. It's going to be on November 15th. So if you're hearing this before then, check that out. Register for it. November 15th is when I'm going to do this webinar after these 3 podcast episodes are released. And, if you're listening to this podcast episode after that, go ahead and go there anyway. Go to LeadPropeller.com/webinar. Either I'll have a new webinar or I'll have those recordings or something available. So do check it out. And be sure to tune into the next podcast episode to find out how to quickly promote your website so that you can get these incredible motivated seller leads right away without waiting to rank in the search engines. It's possible. I'm going to show you how to do that. So definitely subscribe on iTunes to Flipping Junkie Podcast. If you are enjoying all this great information, please leave a rating and review on iTunes for the podcast. It really helps us out a lot, and I do appreciate it. Thank you so much for listening, and be sure to go to LeadPropeller.com/webinar, register for that webinar, and stay tuned for more awesome info about online lead generation. Take care.